Morning. Can you guys hear me? They've just gotten on here.
Yes.
Okay, great. So, welcome. I'm gonna get started. It's already about 8:20 here. I got just one local, and but a couple people joining here. So it looks like I finally got the Zoom up. Let me apologize in advance for technical difficulties. So yeah, uh, didn't get a chance to test this room and the equipment. So hopefully we're kind of ready to go here. So, um, all right. Yeah, let me just go ahead and jump in. Let me make sure everything's recording here. Okay. Ta-ta. Yes. All right. Let me share my screen too. So, yeah, it's been a while since I've been using video. There we are. All right. Can you guys see what I'm seeing now on my desktop?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And let's go to start. Like I said, so good morning. Welcome. This is our machine learning course. I'm Derek Harder. I'm going to be your instructor. Hopefully everybody's been receiving my emails. Hopefully everybody's been able to get into MyLeo online. Let me know if you haven't. If you're here, you've probably been at least seeing the emails. So I mean, I'm gonna do the usual stuff here this morning. I'll talk about the class structure, assignments, technical kind of stuff about the class. You guys feel free to ask me questions. Let me see if I can turn up my volume. So if you're online doing this interactively online, just speak up or even use the chat. I'll try and make certain I can see the chat too. Let me see if I can get that real quick. Um, there we go. Just in case I need that. Oh, that's gonna be in front of my screen. Shoot. Okay. So yeah, so if you're not aware, I'm actually kind of doing two separate sections on this class, but I am gonna try to do them together. So we've got people in AI 520 who are really fully online, and that's fine. You can attend the sessions if you're in the 520, or you can. I'm gonna try to record these and post these lecture videos. Most of the sessions that I do for the class in person face to face, I try to do more like help sessions. So they're more not really traditional lectures, So if you are attending or even online, be good to have your computer, your environment set up, because I mostly go over assignments and stuff like that when we do things in here face to face. A little bit sorry about the confusion for the time. The This was kind of the only thing that was available on Tuesday, Thursdays was this early morning time. So, and I don't know why they didn't get it posted in the class schedule, but yeah, we are going to meet Tuesday, Thursdays in the mornings. Officially, we're supposed to be from like 8 to 9:30, 8 to 9:15. I do have I have a little bit of a thing in the mornings. I probably won't be here till usually like 8:05 or so. So we'll officially start at 8:15, I'll try and have my Zoom up and also be in the classroom by 8:05 or 8:10 usually if people want to come in and ask a question before we get going, that kind of stuff. Um, so if you haven't looked at the course, the MyLeo online, you should jump in there and read through stuff. All the stuff will appear under the content. Um, I usually I usually have it set up so that you can only see the stuff that I kind of want you to. So at this point, I've only got the first unit, the first week kind of visible, as well as the overview getting started. You guys should read through the overview and get it started. There is a syllabus posted under the overview. So I was going to do the usual stuff here, go through that, see if anybody has any questions about class structure and things. Okay, so this is machine learning. This is one of my favorite course. This is kind of my research area. But and not to mention, I think for graduate students, this stuff is really useful, really important. There's lots of opportunities, lots of places out in the industry and in academia. Really, the stuff is also hot. Of course, the real hot stuff is deep learning and neural networks and things, but this is sort of, you have to know the machine learning basics to really understand kind of the stuff that's happening in large language models and all the big AI hype. Kind of, in my opinion, it's a little bit of an AI bubble. We'll see how it sustains or not. But anyway, I hope you guys kind of excited about this course. We are going to be doing basic machine learning sorts of things in this course. So a lot of machine learning algorithms. I usually got to go through the basics. So we will, I guess you can have this in my list here, but we're going to start with things like logistic and linear regression, which are really good to understand because a lot of machine learning algorithms are similar. They work in similar ways to logistic and linear regression. So we'll kind of start with those. But in this class, we're going to mostly be concentrating on what's known as supervised learning. So we'll spend about 2/3 or 3/4 of the class on supervised learning. So supervised learning is really the idea that you have a set of data, but it's labeled data. So it has the answers that you want to predict or the label for the data. So machine learning for supervised learning is really about taking that data and building a mathematical model or an algorithm that can take an input and make a prediction. Using, and the model is built from that labeled data. So we'll spend a lot of time on supervised learning. We'll look a little bit on supervised learning near the end of the course, which is also a useful technique. So I tend to do more of a practical approach on the course. So hopefully I'm gonna get into talking about getting your development environment set up. So you will need your own computer. Probably a minimum, you need like 4 GB. You need to be a relatively recent computer. It would probably be better if you could have something with more memory than that, but you might be able to get it work with 4 GB. So you will need to get a Python distribution set up and running. I've got kind of an official one set up for the assignments. Like I said, I'm going to try and maybe look at that a little bit today. So that information is under the getting started. I'll jump to that in a bit after I'm done with the syllabus here. So in terms of what we're going to be doing from the course, don't know if no, there we go. Let's bring up the syllabus here. I do have office hours for the people that are local here. Feel free to just send me emails. That's usually the best and first kind of communication with questions and things, or to set up an appointment. But if you want to, I should be over in, I sit over in the science building, 355. It's up on the 3rd floor. There's a high performance computing lab up there. So I'll be there on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays afternoon. But it is good to email me ahead of time, even so, because I'm often kind of away for a meeting or something like that. Get pulled away to do things, but those are good times for me to meet, or even if you just happen to be around, to come by if you have a question or something, especially this first week when you're getting your development environment set up. Send me emails if you have problems with that, or even come by. Or if you can come to these face-to-face meetings here in the morning, we might have some time to work one-on-one with people. So you probably really you do need to get the textbook. So the assignments and the tests and things are really kind of coming from the textbook readings. So, but this textbook is a really good one to own. So, I use it a lot. I highly recommend it. The Hands-On Machine Learning by the Geron, or Geron, I'm not certain how to pronounce his name. Do get the most recent one if you can, the 3rd edition, although you'd probably be okay with the 2nd edition. But there are some minor changes in there. So get that book. You should start reading the first chapter this week, which is just kind of an overview and introduction to machine learning, right? So each week, if you in the class, My Leo Online, if you go to the thing, there'll be some discussion. So I do have some more traditional lecture videos for the online people, or for even for the 574 people. So you can also watch those. Well, I need to add some onto those. I only have about half the course so far with some good lecture videos. But yeah, like this week, you should do the getting started. You probably want to begin, make sure to get the textbook this week, read the first chapter just to get a overview of kind of machine learning, the landscape, and some big idea kind of concepts and things. So. Wow, my voice is losing it already here. It's been too long since I've been talking here. So, oops. So, I'll come to back that. There's other stuff. So, once I get showing you some things, there's also a official class repository with notebooks and things and a lot of other materials to use. So, but yeah, I recommend you get started with the Python programming notebooks. So those are labeled U01. Hopefully I'll get to and show those here in a bit here. All right, and let's go back to the syllabus. So in terms of course structure, it's relatively simple right now. My plan is the main learning, the main thing for most people is going to be doing the assignments. There'll probably be at least six. There might be 6, 7 of those. So approximately one every 2 weeks of an assignment. So this is actually doing coding inside of a Python notebook. And we'll talk more about those later, but those will be about maybe about half the course will be in those things. I am going to have also a more open-ended final project for this course. Probably sometime after 3 or 4 weeks, I'll begin talking about that more. It's not as big as a course project you might have done in other courses. It's more like an open-ended programming assignment. So in terms of that final project, I'm going to be asking you to, apply the stuff that we did in the class, but you pick like a data set and do some data exploration of it, data cleaning, and modeling of it, of some data set that you pick, something you might be interested in, or I have resources with basic example data sets that you might want to use. You might be familiar with them. There's lots of them, like the UCI repository of data sets, or Kaggle data sets, or things like that you can possibly use to pick one for that final project. So that tends to be worth about 2 of the regular assignments, right? So if each assignment is worth about 8%, that project would be worth about 16%. So these numbers, like as usual, the syllabus is subject to a little bit of change. So but yeah, they'll be about that, like I showed here. And then the rest of the course will be split. I will have 2 exams, like a midterm and a final. That will be done online, so you won't have to come into class for that. Although it will probably be in the form of, there will be a post of some questions through the My Leo Online course, but the questions will be like, write a function in Python or something. So you'll have to write it in a Python notebook in a particular time limit, and then upload the notebook at the end of the test, rather than like multiple choice true false questions. So it'll be kind of similar to again the programming assignments, the assignments we do for the class, but you'll have a time limit on it. So really, all of the stuff that you're doing in this course, you do need to get your Python environment. So you can run Jupyter Notebooks up quickly, so you can look at the course materials, and you can do the assignments and things. Okay. All right. And as usual, if you go down here, there's kind of a general outline of the calendar. We'll spend the first 2 weeks. It's really 2 weeks. It looks like 3 weeks here, but Unit 1 and 2 are going to be basically talking about Python, and also talking about these scientific Python libraries. So we'll use these a lot, especially NumPy and pandas, and then we're going to be using scikit-learn a lot for this class as well. But for the first 2 weeks here, we'll be concentrating on Python and NumPy and pandas. And then after that, like I already mentioned, so we'll start with linear and logistic regression. And then we'll get into some other fundamental machine learning methods. So k-nearest neighbors, support vector machines, decision trees. These are all kind of basic tools of the trade for people that are doing data analytics or machine learning in various capacities. And then at the end, we'll look at unsupervised learning. Okay, so that was relatively quick because I want to jump into some other things. Anybody want me to clarify anything, or is that relatively clear at this point, the structure? So yeah, get your course textbook, make certain you get into Miley Online. You should be working on the getting started stuff, today and this week here. And sorry, I'm gonna have to learn this environment here. I'm trying to have a good setup here so I can see if anybody types in a chat message or anything. So, okay, so if anybody doesn't have any questions about kind of structure or technical stuff, I do want to jump in and to the getting started, start talking about things. So let's look at that. And again, I'm maybe going to try and show setting this up here, but I do sometimes have some technical difficulties with these. So my setup is a little bit flaky sometimes because I'm going to try to use a virtual machine to show setting up the tools that you need to run the Python notebooks and things for the course here. So I'd recommend, after you get the textbook, go to this link under the Getting Started, the VS Code Remote Dev Containers. Just bring that up then. All right. So this is really it's really just the instructions of the things you need to do to set up in here. Okay. So before I get into these, you can maybe just install your own Python distribution. I recommend using Anaconda if you install your own Python distribution. Hopefully I've got some links to that if you're not familiar with that in places in the course here. I probably should have mentioned, there's some good stuff under the additional resources, links to textbooks. Oh, for the first 2 weeks here, I am going to be expecting you to pick up the basics of Python. So, if you don't know Python, if you haven't done Python yet, I mean, that's okay. I do expect, though, that you do know how to program in some languages, C, Java, something like that, right? So even if you've never done Python before, you should be able to pick up the basics relatively quickly, but you'll need to do that in these first 2 weeks. You don't have to learn everything about the Python language, but you do have to learn, how to write a function, how to do loops, some of the basic data structuring Python thing. I recommend using the How to Think Like a Computer Scientist book. This is a free online book. Just in general, this is really good because it talks about other things, algorithms and data structures and things, but it also has some Python. So like about the first 6 or so chapters in the online version of this, more than that. So you probably want to get through, make certain that you kind of understand the stuff in the up to like lists and dictionaries and things. So that's the first 10 or so parts in here. So yeah, this first 2 weeks, I will be expecting you. I've also got lecture notebooks that you can use to learn or review this kind of stuff. But the basics of the language are that first 10 chapters here. in this textbook. So things like functions, loops, variables, and that kind of stuff. And then some basic data structures like lists and dictionaries and things. But this is a really good book in general for other stuff, for other reasons as well. And I started saying, so you might, if you have problems setting up the official development environment, Python environment for the class, you can install a Python distribution on your own. I highly recommend you just use the Anaconda. So you can just install that directly, possibly, okay, if you have problems. But I would like you to try setting up the container environment that I'm going to go over now. See if you can get that working or not. So most people should. It's a lot easier than it used to be. It's a lot less likely to run into difficulties setting up the environment that's mentioned here. So let me get into that. There is a video. This might be a couple of years old, so there might be a few things that are a little bit off on that, but you can watch the video if I don't get through all this here today. You need 3 things to run the containerized Python environment for this class. You need a Docker desktop running on your system. I'm mostly assuming people are using either Windows or Mac OS here. If you use Linux, you don't need Docker desktop. You just need to install Docker. Let me know if you're using Linux, if you're a fellow Linux person like myself. So these instructions are mostly for Windows or Mac people. You do need to have Windows or a Mac operating system. You can't use Android or iOS or a Chromebook or something like that. So it needs to be a real personal computer, a real desktop computer with Windows or Mac OS. You can use either the Intel AMD architecture or the new Apple Silicon, so M1, M2, M3, M4 Macs work fine, work well actually for this containerized environment also. So if you're using Windows, you'll probably want to use at least Windows 10 or 11. I don't know if you can get an older version of that nowadays, although a lot of people are having problems using Windows 11. But you want something that has the WSL, the Windows subsystem for Linux on Windows. It's capable of doing that. So anyway, you need to install Docker Desktop on Windows or Mac OS. You need a GitHub account for this class. So if you've never used GitHub before, you want to go ahead and create a GitHub account. If you already have a GitHub account, you want to use your current GitHub account, and you didn't use your student email, your student at leomail.tmuc.edu, that's fine. I would prefer, though, that you use a GitHub account that's using your Leo Mail email address. So if you're creating a new one, definitely use your Leo Mail address for GitHub. But yeah, so you need on your personal system Docker Desktop. You need the Git tools, so you have to install Git, and then you need VS Code with these what are known as development containers extension installed on it. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna show. I got maybe 30 more minutes left here. I'm gonna try and show setting these up on a Windows environment. Like I said before, I apologize in advance. This may not work. I'm using nested virtualization, so it's a little bit unstable, flaky at times. So I'll try and get as far as I can, and then if it doesn't work here, then we will go to a different method. So let me just start it up here. So if you install those tools in order, you can start with Docker Desktop. There's a link on that website that will take you to the place to download the standard installers for Windows, for Docker and for VS Code and for Git. Go back to this here. So starting with Docker here, I'm going to start with the step one. So this link here will take you to a place to get the installers, whether you're on Mac OS or a Windows operating system. You'll just want to get that installer. For in either case, you'll just want to run the installer and accept all of the defaults. Docker, the most common problem on Docker is for Windows people. I think Mac people, it's been pretty stable lately. Windows, you might have problems getting the WSL to work correctly on the first attempt. So here's my Windows. Let's see if this will work here. I've already got, I want to log back in here, but I've already got the website here. Again, I'm using this website again. By the way, I mean, this is correct. I'm just, I need to change the location of this repository. I'm using this for a bunch of different classes. So you're not my 430 class, but these are the correct instructions in case, hopefully it doesn't confuse anybody. So if you click on here, it will take you to the Docker website. You can download. I've already downloaded here. I don't want to re-download it. Pick your correct operating system, whether you have the Apple Silicon or the Intel architecture if you're a Mac, or AMD or ARM. Probably most people wouldn't have ARM. The AMD is really the Intel AMD. That's what most people would have if you're a Windows person. So if you download that, this one and the VS Code are standard installers for your system, whether you're Mac or OS. So it should end up in your download subdirectory. And I'm just going to start it from there, show you running it here. So I don't know. Also, I don't know if this will be fast enough when I'm running Zoom and some other stuff here. So we'll see how well it looks here. So really, Docker, if you run this installer, it doesn't ask for a lot of um, configuration options. So you want to select. So again, I'm doing this on a Windows operating system. You'll want to select. Oh shoot. Sorry about that. I already had this one installed here. So seem to play nice with other stuff here. So I think I'm gonna have to not try and do the stuff for cheap. Here in a bit. stuff I can on my own system here. So once you have Docker desktop, you'll have to reboot your system. The most common thing, once you reboot the system with Docker, make certain that you start Docker desktop and make certain that it shows that the engine is running. If the engine isn't running, you probably don't want to go on to the next steps until you figure out why the Docker desktop engine is starting correctly. For Windows, most likely what you need to do if the Docker desktop doesn't start the engine up for you is you'll probably have to go in and maybe install the WSL by hand or install a distribution on the Windows subsystem for Linux by hand. That's the most common thing I see people do to fix this on Windows. Is maybe by hand go in and make certain that WSL is actually started, has a distribution installed, and seems to be okay. And if that's working, then usually the desktop will work on Windows, and it will start the Docker desktop engine for you. Another thing, this is mostly also Windows only. It was more common in the past that BIOS setting for to enable virtualization wasn't enabled by although more modern computers usually have this turned on by default. But if you've never gotten into your BIOS on your PC, and when it reboots, you might want to go into your BIOS and check these settings. There's some links that might help you out if you've never done that before. So normally when you're booting, when it gets to the post test, the power on self-test stuff, you can a function key. It's usually like F1 or F2. Sometimes it's like delete or to enter the BIOS, and then you'll have to search for. It's usually under the CPU settings in your BIOS. There'll be something labeled virtualization. If you have a Intel, the name of it will be something like Intel VT or just VT. If you have an AMD chip, it'll be like AMD, but you want to make sure that's enabled, or else the Docker and the container won't work. Okay, so this usually isn't a. I don't think it's an on Mac systems. It's definitely not an issue on the new Mac Silicon. These are kind of more standard PCs that are running Windows usually. You might have to enable some bio settings. Uh, okay, so move on. So I already mentioned, so do create a GitHub account. Let me show my GitHub account here. So when you create a GitHub account, you will have to, specify an email. And you have to connect it with an email, and you have to do a verification, to send an email. But you should be able to get a GitHub account set up relatively easily. One of the things that you'll need to be familiar with then is that on the upper right-hand side, once you're logged in your GitHub account, you'll find your settings down here. Got too much stuff on my screen. So on GitHub, if you click on your icon, your picture, go to your settings. That's where you can set up the stuff. So this is where you'll need to go set up your secure shell keys that I'm going to talk about next here. You can check your emails, so you should have, again, it's okay if you've already got it out. You're not using your Leo email address, but I would prefer, especially creating a GitHub account by scratch, to have your Leo email as your primary address, just to make it easier on me when I'm looking at stuff for your assignment. Yeah. All right. And then, so you will need to install Git. I recommend that you install Git, check it out from the command line. Okay, so if you've never used a command line tool or a terminal on Windows, you can bring up the start menu and just search for CMD, and you can find it. On Mac OS, you have to go into like applications, utilities. You'll find your terminal terminal application under there somewhere. So however you do that, open up a terminal. Try get dash. There's two dashes for a flag when you're running a command line command. So get dash version. If you already have Git installed, you might already have Git installed, especially if you're a Mac OS person. If not, you'll get a message like command not found. So on Windows, it would say, it can't command or something like that if you try to run git. So I was just doing that to give an example of what message, but you want to try to see if you have git running or not. If you have git installed, if you're on Windows, again, there's a link here. And this is a standard installer. And I wish I could show this. So again, if you're installing it on Windows, accept all of the defaults. There is one place though, it's discussed right here. There's one default that you should change on Windows. So there's something about the how to handle line endings, how Git handles line endings on. So the default on that is to actually convert them to Windows endings, and that can cause you problems for the assignments if you're a Windows person. So you want to look out for that configuration option and have it check out is as is and commit as is instead of leaving it to convert the line ending on Windows. Okay, if you're if on Mac OS, you might not have Git when you do this, but the first time when you run Git for most distributions, it will give you the option to install the Git tool yourself. Okay, so on Mac OS, probably what you want to do is what I just showed. And if you don't have it installed, it will pop up something saying it looks like you don't have the Git tool. You want to install them, and go ahead and install it using the standard Mac OS setup for Git. And if that doesn't work, though, you can go to here and get the package OS to try and install it that way, or you could use brew install. So, all right. So after you have that, don't steps here. So let me show. I can kind of show doing this on my system. Since I wasn't able to. So if you do have Git, if you open up a terminal, you have to learn how to open up a terminal if you've never done that before. This should work. To run Git commands, like for example, to find out which Git version you have. They should do these things here. So there are some global configurations. You need to set your username before you use Git. Okay, so the way to do that is like we showed here. I can set my git config like that. Okay. Or you could just copy paste that, but of course change your name. And that has to be in between quotes. Okay. So the biggest thing about learning to do stuff from the command line is just getting used to understanding, things like space matter. So this is between, and of course um, the spelling matters. So it should be get CONFIG for get flags. Some flags sometimes have just one dash, sometimes they have two. So get uses two flags, so that's dash dash global, and then there's that name, and then so on, right? So you do need to set your username. Make sure that the email address is the same as the primary address that you have on GitHub. So for me, I'm actually using my personal email address for my GitHub account, right? For you, whatever you set as the primary email address in your GitHub you should set that as your configuration locally. Get tools, right? So for me, my primary address, if I go back and look at my email settings, my primary address was that. So I want to set my global configuration on my systems to use that same address. All right. So I didn't show this in the instructions, but you can check your configuration. So if you're doing this on Windows, you'll probably see some. And so in particular, there's a I think it's .crlf. That's the thing about automatically converting carriage return lines. Right, that should be set to false on Windows, so it doesn't change your line endings when you do checkouts. So again, if you do the git config list, you should be able to check whether you correctly set that when you installed Git or not. You can't see it on my system because we don't have to change the line endings on Mac or Linux systems. All right, and then The third thing to do here is to actually create a secure shell key. This will create a key so that you can do check-in and check-outs to your GitHub repository. If you have a question, let me know. So then, once you've got your config set up, do a SSH again. That will generate a key for you. I've already got a key, so I don't really want to run this command. So like it shows here, you just run H keygen and just hit return. So for a passphrase, you can use an empty passphrase, so just hit return. Until it generates it for you, okay? So what this will do is it will create a key in your directory in a directory called .ssh called ID underscore and ID underscore RSA.pub. The pub one is the public version, so that's safe to share. You don't want to share the private one. That's kind of like a password. So if you're on Windows, kind of do what I did. You can open up a terminal and do like a type.ssh backslash ID underscore RSA.pub. So Windows uses backslashes and so slashes for path separators. But after you run the keygen, have an ID underscore RSA pub in your user home directory. For Mac OS. So if you open up a terminal on Mac OS, you can do the same thing that I just did, but Mac OS is a Unix system, so you can do the cat command I just did. So the reason why I'm showing that is because basically you have to copy the public key. So you can get it from the command line, cat or type, or you can open it up in Notepad or open it up in editor. However you find that key, you want to find the public one, copy contents of that. So I'll do a copy here. And then you want to create a new SSH key in GitHub, right? So for GitHub, if you go again, I'll show your settings. That's how you get all these settings here. And you go to the SSH and GPG keys in order to add in a new SSH key. So here I'm going to go ahead, just show an example of this. I'm not going to use this key, but if you paste your public key, add a new key, paste your public key in here. You should give it a good title. So, my, for example, key, right? And add it to your system here. So if you do that, then you'll probably have to verify. So me, since I've got two-factor auth set up, I'd have to verify. I don't want to do that though, so I've already got a key here. If you do that this far here, don't skip this step. Okay, so if you skip this step, you'll have problems in VS Code using Git. Okay, so if your SSH correctly, if you generated it and you copied it into GitHub, you should be able to successfully authenticate it like I showed here. So if I do like an git at GitHub from terminal, if you get that it couldn't authenticate, something is wrong. You didn't generate the key correctly. You didn't get it into GitHub. Right. So again, don't go to the next step with VS Code until you can successfully authenticate here. I notice on Windows sometimes you do that, you have to actually hit return. It'll only go part of the way. If you hit return once or twice, it'll finish off, and then you'll be able to tell whether you're successfully authenticating your key that you just generated, or if you're having problems with it. Yeah. So I don't know why this has a problem with that, but sometimes you have to hit enter a couple times. Okay. And then I'm running out of time here today, but if you get that far, then, most people don't have any problems installing code. So again, this is a standard installer. You can use, that'll work. A Mac standard installer if you have a Mac OS, or a Windows standard. You can accept all the defaults when you install VS Code. VS Code and show you how VS Code looks. So again, I can show you this from scratch. So once you have VS Code, sorry about close this off. And you do have to have one extension. Uh, environment. So on the left-hand side, if you use VS Code, are basic operations. This is the source control. So this is where you use get. And then, oops, and then down here, the last one. Might be lagging again. Sorry if my online people, if you're having problems with lag. So the last one down here is the extensions. Let me try stopping things here. Okay. Let's see if that helps. Okay, well, so again, sorry about that. Like I warned you guys, I always have problems with Zoom. Playing nice with other stuff. So whenever I'm running Zoom, it tends to eat up resources. So I just have to describe the last thing that I was going to describe here was on Visual Studio Code. You need to have dev container extension installed. So the last one down here is where you manage extensions, adding capabilities to VS Code. So if you go to there, if you search for dev container, find the one from Microsoft and dev container extension. Once you have that, you should be ready to go. And I wish I could have shown you run here. Let me try just quitting out of VS Code. Restart it. I hope online people are getting this here. Uh, shoot. Yeah, lost. Okay. Yeah, I crashed. So I'm probably gonna have to go ahead and just wrap it up there. Sorry about that. So that was kind of, we didn't get through everything I wanted to. The video showing setting up your development environment is a little bit better. So I do kind of show walking through windows and doing some of these things as well in the video. I might try this again, or I might try making a better video so I can do that without having Zoom. Try to have Zoom right at the same time. But that's the basic. Once you get that far, you have VS Code and Git installed and have a GitHub account and have Docker running, you should be able to clone class assignments or clone the class repositories and on the assignments and things. Okay, so I'll have to show that next time since I'm gonna boot my system here. So my people online, if they're still with me, aren't going to be able to see until I come back up. So okay, yeah. So if you have any just a few more minutes. So it's asking about cloning repository on assignment 1. You want to probably start by cloning the class resources. So that one you just clone the is using the HTTP URL in order to get a copy. That's the one that has all the class lecture notebooks, other resources in it. So that the link that he's asking about for the class resources is under the additional resources in our MyLeo Online. So one install that. I think your question is you can clone it with VS Code. Just clone it by hand, forget it. Doesn't matter. You can do it either way. But you should try cloning. If you clone that with VS Code, that class resources is set up to use the container environment. So I didn't get a chance to show that today, but if you class resources with VS Code, it should, if everything's running, it should the opportunity to reopen the repository in a folder. What you want to do once it's running in a container, sorry, reopen the folder in a container. So once it's running in a container in VS Code, then you'll actually have Jupyter Hub running for you. So you'll be able to open up the notebooks in a Jupyter Hub instance and stuff like that. And so I'm going to have to show that next time, or I'm going to have to in order to show that. My system has kind of gone down here. So hopefully that kind of made sense, right? So once you get this far, probably the first thing you want to do is clone the class resources so you can look at the class lecture notebooks, right? And you should try and clone it in VS Code. So if everything's running, if everything I was trying to talk today is working, when you clone that in VS Code, it should ask you if you want to read it in a container, which you would want to do in order to use the function. All right. Any other questions here before I officially wrap up? Yeah, sure. Extension that I'm installing the industry. It's extension. If you just search for like dev or dev container. It should be a Microsoft official extension. So there's also something called like remote dev containers. You only need the dev container one. It wouldn't hurt to have both of those. I think if you install the remote one, it will install containers. But for this class, you only need like the dev containers, Microsoft extension. Okay, last chance. Online students, I do want to kind of reboot the system. I hope that this record, I don't know if the session is going to be useful, but I'm going to try and record this and get this up just to make sure that the playlist and stuff are working. So any last any questions, online people? If not, I'm going to stop recording so I can reboot my computer here. So yeah, okay. Thank you guys. Sorry for the technical difficulty. continue working on those, although I don't think if I'm gonna run Zoom, I don't think I can do much about the stuff that I want to do. I just have to show the stuff on my host system, not try and run any virtual machine stuff. So, all right. Email me if you have questions. We will meet again on Thursday. That'll be our next meeting. See you guys hopefully on Thursday.